Hi, Vani. Welcome to
Hi,
Brands Brews Banter. First of all, good morning. This,
good morning.
this is the first episode that I'm doing at 9 a.m. So, brews to dekho hai nahi, right? My coffee from Third Wave is on the way, but like we had just had to do this. Do you do your podcast? Like, so folks, of course, know that Vani also does a lot of podcasts and she does a lot of work with a lot of people, which we'll scratch on. Do you also make folks do this at 9 a.m.?
I do this whenever people are available. Yeah, I mean, and mine is not a video, by the way. So you don't
Oh,
get to see the state I'm in, behind the screen. Mine is all
oh,
audio.
you get
So
away.
yeah, so I can do it at any time. I can do it sitting in bed.
Oh, lovely. So I'll take that hack. I think so. Folks who are listening to it on audio, so this is great. The video isn't good, so please देखना मत because like she's because she's looking great and I'm clear. Actually, मैं effort भी करता तो कुछ होता नहीं ज़्यादा, but regardless. So please stick to audio for this episode is what I would say. So folks, I think everybody knows Vani and the work that she does. If you're in marketing, वो living under rock वाला भी नहीं होगा. But I think everybody knows she's quite active on LinkedIn. We know about her personal brand. She's worked on pretty much all the brands that you know and love, which you have in your pantry right now at Levers, at Reckitt, at PepsiCo, at Henkel. And kind of the most interesting part of what I see and what I follow you for is the stuff you do with brands who need you at this point, right? And I really want to know a lot of stuff about that. But I want to start right from the beginning. What was Vani like as a kid?
As a kid,
Yeah.
I was like any other regular kid, extremely scared of exams. Very fairly traditional upbringing in the sense, if you don't, land with if you don't get good grades, if you don't get a good job, then what are you going to do? And I was the simple child, the ratta dependent child. Somehow get past exams and all of that. So yeah, I mean, for me, exams were a very big deal. Which college will I get into? And then when I get into college, will I get a job? What kind of job? And will my visiting card have anything decent to boast about? And what am I going to tell my mother? That was the sort of childhood I had.
Okay. Was your mom a strong influence in you growing up in your
Big
choices?
time, big time, big time, big
Yeah.
time.
Like
And I
tell us
think
a
this
little
is
more.
true with a lot of families. I mean, my mother was also never a working woman,
Hmm.
So when you don't have money in your own hand,
Hmm.
then you're particularly vengeant about, uh, you know, your kids not having to deal with what you dealt with. So
Hmm.
in that sense, yeah, she was very, very particular. You can't not have a good job. You can't not be independent. You can't not have your own money, your own car, your own ability to make decisions. So a lot of that I get from her, without doubt.
I'm sure she's incredibly proud. But do you have siblings? And were you a competitive sibling?
No, my brother was always far ahead of me. You know, I was the, what should I say, the comparatively much less intelligent child. My brother, nobody had to worry about. He was always a top of variety, and nobody had to worry about his career and all of that. So he did engineering, then he went to ISB. He made his own choices, and now he's working at GE Aviation. He was with Boeing before that. So he got one plum job after the other, and he's living in Cincinnati now.
Yeah,
So he's
I was
doing
literally going to ask. I was like, "ये humility side में करके, you is your brother literally a rocket scientist?" But yeah, I was like super
it.
close, man. You're saying if you were like he was super intelligent and I was like the lesser sibling, and I was like, yeah, ये humility वाला scene, but like I get you, yeah. I
No,
totally get you.
no. I was the one who, one had to worry about in the family.
Yeah, yeah, but kind of you stumbled onto like great things eventually, right? But like what time, right? Like were you? I'm sure there's like literally zero marketers that I've met in my life have said कि I wanted to become a marketer when I grew up. वो तो देखो नहीं होता, right? Like and I think we need to do something about that.
Hmm.
Like I think the astronauts and the helicopter pilots and stuff they have great branding, right? We have like shit branding. So
Correct.
what did you want to become when you were a kid?
Actually, I had absolutely no clue of what I wanted to do. I just knew that I suck at science, and so I don't want to do science.
Hmm.
I knew I sucked at maths as well, but my mother didn't let me drop maths, and thank God for that. So I went on to do BCom honors.
Hmm.
And I mean, you're considerably younger, Harinder, but in at my time, there was very, very, very few options, in terms of what you could do, what subjects. Our worldview was very limited in terms of what you could do. So, BCom honors करा है तो MBA is the natural path. MBA तो करोगे.
Mm,
So then it was a question of, can you make it past cat? What will you score in cat?
mm,
And I didn't score well enough to get into the IIMs, so I went to MDI. And I didn't want to become a marketer, but it was like by elimination. So now what else? Since I'm
mm,
not good at anything else, so
mm,
chalo marketing. And marketing also, actually, in college, I was very good with consumer behavior. That was the one course that I really enjoyed. So I
mm,
wanted to get into advertising. And when
mm,
companies came to MDI, I only applied to the one ad agency that came to campus. I didn't apply anywhere else. There was a Colgate, there was a Britannia, there was a Perfetti, um, there was a Gillette that came to campus. I
mm.
didn't apply. And I said, no, I will only do advertising. RK Swami BBDO was the only agency that came on campus.
Yeah.
And I was very, very fortunate to be one of the two who was picked up by them. And that's how I started. That, this is it. From everything that I've studied, advertising is the career I'm going to pursue.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, right? Tell me
Yeah.
about that when you were at B school, right? Tell me about the process. Tell me about your experiences, the process of elimination that you're speaking up. What was your mental model? Like, what did you think? Yeah, ye to nahi karna. Like, because I see a lot of marketers kind of do that. Yeah, finance, I'm not going to do. HR is not worth doing, and like, kya bacha? So tell me a little bit about what were you thinking? Where was your mind?
So finance, actually, I did consider quite surprisingly. I thought
Mm,
it will be very cool, and I thought finance guys just make a lot of money. So I thought isko karke dekhte hain. I went for my summers to GSK, and I did an internship in cash management systems. I had
uh,
a lovely boss, sort of. I had a great time with the team. The whole, the team at GSK, the finance guys. I used to love going to work, except that what they were doing, I had zero understanding of.
mm,
I just loved the people. I loved hanging out with them, and I managed my project. And apparently, I'd done a very good job of it. I got very good feedback. But having come out of that internship, I said, no way. There's just no way I can do finance in any form, even if finance means a world of different things. But from whatever little I've seen, there's no way I can do this. So that's how finance got eliminated. HR, I felt, was just for the losers. And this bit you might want to edit out. I don't know.
I agree till this day, but like I'll get my wife is an HR, so we have this. I have the maximum HR jokes which are available. So please, we will not edit this out. Huh.
Ouch. Okay. So then what I had left was marketing. And then
Mm,
parallelly, I saw that, I'm really, really enjoying the courses on. I mean, I used to love sitting in the marketing classes, consumer behavior in particular. Those were the only subjects in which I was scoring B plus A, B plus A. Everything else was, best not talked about. So I thought, iska kuch kar lete hain, and, let's get into advertising was how it all shaped up. Of course, when I went into the ad agency, Harinder,
mm,
within the first couple of months, I decided, oh God, this just not for me. Like, this is terrible. Like, how can
mm,
I be doing a job of this nature? And every
mm,
day I'd complain. And although I'm extremely grateful for that experience, I'm extremely grateful. But BBDO in particular was very, very tough. I used to drive home every morning at 4 a.m. from work, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. from work,
my
and
God.
then get back into office by 9:30, 10. And those were the days, I don't know if you might be familiar with those days, but those were the days where artworks were all manual.
Yeah.
Everything was scratched out by hand. And as a young management trainee, I would go with that bromide from desk to desk saying, इस पे CYM के, लिख दो and sign कर दो. And every night I would have this dream that Cosmopolitan छप गई है and, जहाँ पे मेरा ad आना था वो page blank है because Vani couldn't submit the ad on time.
My God. So this is like the marketer's version of कि 10th का maths का exam है और my syllabus खत्म नहीं हुआ. So this is that.
Exactly. Exactly. That was my constant dream that I have screwed up and the page is blank and everybody's saying, oh, she messed up again.
My God, that, I'm sure that's a recurring dream. But yeah, in case we have to go through that therapy, then you have to pay me like $1,000 an hour or some shit, right? But tell me about the time at BBDO, right? What clients were you working on? Like, what was good and not so good about it?
I was working on Adidas
Okay.
and Cosmopolitan.
Cosmopolitan.
Cosmopolitan was both of them were huge experiences. Adidas, we'd signed up Sachin Tendulkar. It was the first film that I made with Sachin Tendulkar. Beautiful team, Ram Madhvani film.
Hmm.
And we were a very close knit team, and a bunch of fabulous individuals who I have deep respect for till date, and I still believe are amongst the best in the industry. Um, and we created the launch film for Adidas in India,
Wow.
and Sachin with Sachin Tendulkar. Gosh, that film, even when I watch it now, it gives me the goosebumps.
Is it?
Yeah,
Which
and
one is it? If we can just look, like, I'll put it in the show notes. Which
yeah, you must. This is Ram Madhwani. If you Google Equinox Ram Madhwani, in fact, I can send you the link.
Yeah,
Adidas launch film in India with Sachin Tendulkar. You'll find it.
super. So,
So, and at that time, the technique that he'd used was, was leaps ahead of what was available at that time. There was this I don't remember the technical name for it, but there were more than 50 cameras which were around Sachin. And as he makes that shot, you see what that shot looks like as he hits from each one of the different cameras, from the eyes of each one of those different cameras all together. And you see this ball being because Sachin is the god of cricket, and more so at that time. I'm talking about 1998 was when we shot that film.
is this like the Matrix thing, like in which like there's a slow mo and Neo kind of dodges a bullet?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You see the
Oh,
film and you'll see that shot.
yeah.
And it's done in black and white. Ram Madhwani is, of course, an incredible artist. And so that was one of my big experiences with Leo Burnett, just working on that film. Of course, there were a whole lot of other ads that we used to do with dealer panels and stuff like that. A lot of what I used to do was to just check, proofread the dealer panel and check if every point is in place and there is no spelling mistake, and check the phone number again and again versus what has been said by the client, stuff like that. And then there was Cosmopolitan. Mala Sekri was such an iconic person. It used to be such a big deal to be walking into her office you know, and sitting in front of Mala Sekri. I had to make sure that I kept my mouth shut and just did the listening and just made copious notes of everything that was being said. Uh, so those were my initial days, yeah. And I used to do off and on. If the client were generous, then they'd ask me to do an appointment ad, which I had to make sure I didn't screw up on, which was independent responsibility. That shoot us appointment ad. So that's how I started. And I see kids of today, yeah, I mean, I teach at Ashoka, and in general, I was, I'm saying I'm very grateful for that dirty training that I got. Like
Yeah.
many years down the line, just making minutes of the meeting was a very big deal. Like you'd be sitting
Okay.
as a child, you'd be sitting in the meeting, and the only thing that I'd be doing was she's been appointed for making minutes of the meeting, what each person has said, what was discussed, and how will this minutes of the meeting be crafted, because it will determine how we are seeing the work done today in the future.
Yeah.
And I was paranoid about being able to write down everything. At that time there were no mobile phones, no recording devices, nothing. Everything had to be written down by hand, right?
Mm.
But I see today's generation is very different now. If technology can't do it, then it's not doable. And everybody wants to be in brand strategy. And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? What is brand strategy? I'm not sure if I'm still doing brand strategy.
What is strategy, right? Like I keep
Exactly.
like I
What
want
is
to I have to strategize. Like क्या होता क्या है मेरे को बताओ यार मेरे को I don't have I've never had a strategy job. My boss
exactly?
doesn't have a strategy job. I don't know. We're all
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah, but tell me, let's double click on the differences that you spoke of, since you have good context of while you see Ashoka kids and stuff. What were you like as an MT, and what are they like possibly as management trainees? Right, like of course I see the dealer panel example that you took. Like, I absolutely agree. I think dealer panels are created to like literally whip out the ego of all newly minted marketers. So
Totally.
so I
Totally.
started my career at I started at Carrier Air Conditioner, right? So there, peak of so 1st of April I joined, peak summer, गणेश इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स का नंबर देखो, मेरे मेरे डीलर का पहले क्यों डाला, बाद में डाला. So yeah, so you come with this like heightened pompous feeling that I'm going to come with the solution and I'm going to do strategy. I'm going to strategize the hell out of your brand, right? Because either उधर बैठो और डीलर पैनल चेक करना, फिर then come back to me.
Correct. 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 Exactly. So after that, I worked on BPL. BPL
Yeah.
was this. BPL was also only dealer panel, and huge dealer panel. Like half the ad is dealer panel.
But
So
how
I
are
mean,
kids different?
sorry.
So how are kids different? Like kids
How
different,
are
like of
kids
course.
different? I would. The kids are a lot surer of themselves. I feel
Mm.
they have gigantic ambition. and a lot less anxiety about what they can do. There is a lot more confidence in the zillion options out there, and the ability to dabble with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and there is no time pressure as such. For us, it was like immediately after MBA, what job am I going to do, and how is my career trajectory going to look like, by what age will I get to what. I don't see that kind of anxiety or pressure with this generation,
Why
which
is that?
is probably a good thing. They're quite comfortable. Maybe I'll study, maybe I'll work a little. um, I really wish I had benefit of job experience before I did my MBA, because mine was a very textbookish approach, and most of what was being taught I couldn't relate to. I was just doing it because I have to get past these 2 years somehow. But I wish it were different, and I think a lot of MBA institutes are now insisting on work experience and value that a lot more now, which is the right thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I wish I were a kid born in these times, yeah, and
So much
although
easier.
I don't think that might have been easier. I think the pressure is reversed now because there are so many more options available.
Yeah.
Um, it's a different kind of pressure.
Yeah, but do you think, and I talk about this with a lot of marketers, right? Do you think marketers today, freshly minted ones, right? Like people just getting into the game, do you think they are different because they grew up in a very different India than probably I did or probably you did?
100%. Their view of marketing is Instagram post बना दो, Google banner बना दो, कुछ performance marketing कर दो,
Hmm.
and that's it, and that's how product बिकता है. और क्या होता है marketing? What there is. I mean, the fundamental basics, I think, of what we went through, including for example, our belief, and that is definitely still true, is if you haven't been through sales, or if you don't understand the traditional trade environment in
Hmm.
India, then even if you are an online born company, you are not going to be as effective as a marketer, because bulk of India still purchases offline, and there is a lot of offline to online and online to offline play. You've got to understand those dynamics, and you've got to do the hard yards of understanding what is the consumer unsolved problem, what is the consumer insight, how am I going to build this brand, what is this proposition going to be, is this hinged on real consumer understanding. I feel a lot of that kind of very basic foundational work, which used to be what we used to spend a lot of time on at that time, including my years at Levers and Reckitt, is now considerably shortchanged and not valued enough. Oh, we know our consumers. Many founders I speak with even now, oh, we've got ample reports, we've got reviews from Google. I said, that's not real consumer understanding. What they write in
Hmm.
the Google reviews is not real consumer understanding. Uh,
Absolutely.
and you may be speaking with consumers, but speaking with an investigative lens, with constructed hypotheses. When you're looking at a rebranding, or even if you're looking to verify your proposition and checking whether your current proposition, it's not just about the current proposition, just to do you even know why consumers are buying you? For example, one of the first assignments that I'd done during COVID was with the baker's dozen. And I love the fact that these guys came and their brief was so simple. And it just, it takes a lot of intelligence to be able to craft a brief really simply, because there's clarity of thought. And the brief I got was, we don't know who is our consumer. We
Hmm.
don't know why she's buying us. I said, I love the brief. It couldn't be clearer and simpler. And when the problem is so clearly defined and so simply defined, it's easy to work.
Absolutely.
That kind of clarity I feel we lack today. Now we're just caught up in this whole, the numbers and performance marketing and what this report is showing, and
Hmm.
growth hacking.
Hmm.
Growth hacking. I'm a growth hacker. I can't get around this. I'm a growth hacker.
कहीं और जाके हैक करो भाई, इधर मत करो. Yeah, yeah. So I've also had like obviously many fewer opportunities, but like with a few super early seed and Series A stage folks, just to kind of work with them and help them, like one in ed tech and one in food tech. I see founders, their expectations from what marketing can do or should do, right, is something different. Like, well, like when you come in and like, okay, बताओ क्या problem है, right? Like, at least let me take a shot, right? And versus they say कि तन्मय को ले आओ viral कर देते हैं, right? Like, it's like you just feel that there are two different conversations happening. What's been your
Correct.
experience, because you work with like so many of them? Tell me about the bad ones first, and then we'll talk about the good ones.
Yeah, so I've had strange conversations where I am making a case for being able to do more with less money. And I have been told, sorry, we couldn't bring you on board because we plan to spend a lot more. I was like, okay, that would be the easiest for anyone, right?
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell
You
me.
want to burn millions and millions? Oh, that's really simple. I mean, that you can give to a monkey.
Yeah.
So,
It's
so there are all kinds of strange conversations. Yeah, exactly. This, I've had someone asking me, टेढ़ा है पर मेरा है तो आपने लिखी होगी. आप हमारे लिए ब्रांड की लाइन लिख दो. तो ऐसे नहीं, वो तो मैंने नहीं लिखा. आपने नहीं लिखा तो आपने किया क्या? हाँ, तो हाँ, ये किया. मैं
मैंने
कुछ
ब्रीफ लिखा था, ब्रीफ. It's difficult to explain, right? Like I'm saying, forget founders. Like sometimes it's difficult for me to explain it to my parents. Right? They'll be like, "ये, oh ये हरिंदर ने ad बनाई है." Like मैंने कुछ नहीं बनाया उसमें. I've not written it. I've not shot it. I've not put it on. I've not selected what it's going to be put on. So like,
Correct.
किया क्या है, right? Like so I totally get it.
Exactly. So this year, so I have a lot of these strange conversations, and over the years now I've become a little more patient.
Hmm.
But now I've also become a lot more choosy about who I work with, because it's for someone who just doesn't get it, who just doesn't understand what marketing is about.
Yeah.
Then all you can say is all the best to you, and I hope you find your way. But it wouldn't be possible for the two of us to work together.
Yeah, you have the luxury of doing that, right? So that's also a luxury which like few people come by. But I want to ask you like something, right? Like because there, it's very strange that you talked about an experience in which somebody wanted to pay more. Like I'm like super surprised. So maybe I'm just connecting it to look at na baap ka paisa pade pade sarta hai. I think it was Rang De Basanti or one of those. Maybe the prevalent maxim is that VC ka paisa pade pade sarta hai, so we have to get rid of it as soon as we can. But tell me about like the other end of the spectrum, like folks who say who folks who don't want to pay for advice, and I'm sure there are so many of them. So tell me about some experiences like that.
Yeah, there are plenty of folks who don't want to pay for advice. They would have many conversations on the pretext of finalizing the proposal, or on the pretext of finalizing the scope of work. And you realize, I mean, a lot of times I feel if my proposal itself, because I craft the proposal for every individual client from scratch, there is nothing that's copy pasted.
Yeah.
And my proposals are not one page proposals. They're elaborate proposals on exactly what I do and exactly how I do it. A lot of times I feel if somebody half intelligent were to just look at my proposal and do exactly what was in there, then it would be a large part of the job done, and it may not even necessitate paying me. But there are all kinds of people, yeah, Harinder. There are the genuinely good, um, founders who recognize we have this kind of a problem. And I've enjoyed working with a lot of people at a very early stage with very small monies, even when I have signed contracts with them at one third of my proposed amount, because I've just so enjoyed the conversations with them.
Hmm.
And then there are those who just have long conversations with you and then suddenly disappear, or
Hmm.
would start the assignment and after a couple of months say, sorry, we've run out of money. Just suddenly like that, you know.
Yeah.
So all kinds exist, and over a period of time, you develop the instinct on what kind am I looking at.
Hmm. Tell me about some amazing examples, right? Like, and let's take names now. So, tell me about some brands like which you absolutely loved working on, right? Like you felt that even what the work which kind of came out of it eventually was in line with what you had in your vision.
Hmm. So Cars 24 was my first assignment, straight
Oh,
out of
I
uh,
love that brand. They've done
yeah.
amazing stuff.
And at that time, they were relatively smaller. Of course, they've become a huge brand now. They're a
Hmm.
huge company now. But at that time, the brief from Vikram was again very simple. He said we're spending a lot of money on IPL. That was around February, March when we started speaking,
Hmm.
and then I started working with them formally in May. In May,
Yeah.
when the media campaign for IPL was already on air. So he said we're spending a lot of money, and we've got Boman Irani. Um, we have a whole lot of spots in pretty much every match, but we're not seeing any increase in the footfall in our branches. So what is it that we're getting wrong? Is it media? Is it messaging? What is it we're getting wrong? Why is this campaign not working?
Hmm.
Can you come on board and help us with that? So that was my first assignment. Again, I like the simplicity of the brief. So I said, we're going to start from scratch, but we will do it at a super speed. In 6 months, we'd relaunched the brand with a new proposition. And we recorded new films with Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Mandira Bedi.
Hmm.
We put those on air, and in the markets that we had relaunched, Chennai, Bangalore, and a couple of others I forget now, we had seen 40% growth, the nearabouts of 40% growth, in some cases even higher,
Wow.
after the relaunch. So that was a really really good assignment, and it was also the first assignment that gave me the confidence that this is something I can do. You know,
Hmm.
when I got out of Pepsi, it was just a leap of faith. I had no clue. All I'd done was, with my financial advisors, figured, okay, I have enough money in the bank to, to see me through for at least a year or a year and a half.
Hmm.
So worst case, if I'm not able to make success of this, then I come back to Pepsi, or I'll ask someone for a job. Maybe I'll take a pay cut, but I'd be able to do something in my life.
Yeah.
And so I got out, and Cars 24, actually I owe a lot to them, because they gave me the confidence, and I really enjoyed working on that, and that's how I started bagging other assignments. And the other one that I did in somewhat early stages was Mars Foods.
Hmm.
So Mars, the company that does Wrigley's and
Yeah.
Snickers, and they have a large pet food business. So Mars at that time was looking at entering foods, and we constructed, in again less than 4 months, 3.5 months or so, very very intense project. And Karan, the guy I was working with, again a very down to earth, very understated sort of an intelligent guy,
Hmm.
very thorough with what he himself does. So I had a lot of fun working with him, and we constructed the full mix for what Mars Foods could enter India with. We had Red Seer doing all of the research, putting together all of the data, but we had a view on the entire food landscape. We did consumer insights via social media mining,
Hmm.
because we didn't have time for traditional research. We
Hmm.
spoke to a whole lot of food bloggers and these food influencers and chefs, and made copious notes of where is India going, what are we getting on different kinds of food preferences. Then we worked with the Tasty Bites team that they had a tie up with in Pune, and we developed 7 different platforms for food concepts. And we created prototypes, we had packaging, we assessed capacities in the factory. So we got supply chain, and we created the full business plan in under 4 months. So that was, and we presented that to the team to the global team. So that was another really interesting assignment. It finally didn't get launched because they had other priorities of developing food service in China, etc., etc.
Hmm.
But it was a mix that I was extremely proud of, and I thoroughly enjoyed working on that. So yeah, so that was the other one, and then a whole lot of others, whole lot of many other food brands I've worked on. Fit and Flex, I've recently talked about that on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Long association with Fit and Flex, long association with the Baker's Dozen. Dabur, I worked with Dabur as a consultant for over a year. Helped them relaunch a lot of their brands, Dabur Vatika being the most significant. And you see, for a lot of Dabur brands, they're actually challengers to market leaders.
Yeah.
Sanifresh is a challenger to Harpic.
Hmm.
Fem is a challenger. Um Vatika is a challenger to Parachute. And Dabur was about basically shaking up the traditional thinking and doing something more bold and daring. At that time, Mohit's primary objective was also, how do I uplift the overall credentials of Dabur as a brand? You see, Dabur has a very comforting feeling to it. What if you and I were to think about Dabur? Dabur is health. Dabur is Ayurveda. It's reassuring.
Yeah.
You know, but it also has an old world feel to it. Dabur is not the go to for a young person. It's not. It doesn't feel like a modern dynamic brand.
Absolutely.
So I did a whole architecture exercise with them as well. Uh, all of their top management on where could we take Dabur and how. That was also a very substantial piece of work which I thoroughly enjoyed. So yeah, I mean, then, and fortunately, the good thing about being where I am and about doing the work that I'm doing is that I get to work with so many different categories,
Hmm.
like from IVF to surgery, to construction. I'm working with ArcelorMittal Construction right now, to food, uh, B2B brands, content brands. I mean, education. I've just had fintech brands. I've just had the privilege of working on so many different sectors. I feel it's it's a huge blessing to be able to do what I'm doing. I myself learn so much. I learn more from all of these, different founders. Every industry feels so interesting. I'm talking to someone who's doing lab grown diamonds right now.
Mm.
And wow, man, it's such an interesting world out there. How do you grow lab grown diamonds as a
Yeah,
category?
super interesting. So folks, like some stunning work, and like I'm sure Vani's work doesn't need any endorsement. But if you're a founder, if you're an early stage founder, you need help. I'm going to put in links to where you can get Vani's help in the show notes. So please go through that. And Vani, for you, in case you sign up any of these clients, please buy me one coffee per client. So free में देखो मैं कुछ भी नहीं देने वाला.
We will do it all together.
Yeah, all coffees together. Okay, that'll be
We
a
will work on stuff together, I'm saying.
Oh, love. Oh, great, great. So first time I've been offered like a gig on the podcast. So बहुत सही. But there's one thing that you mentioned in passing, right? And I really want to go very deep in that. You said that you thought that 1 year I'll do this, or maybe I'll go back to PepsiCo. That's an important thing, right? Which a lot of folks are like grappling with. Probably folks who are mid or late career, they're like, okay, let me just do something. What's the runway that I have? And some of those questions are सबके दिमाग में है वो, right? Like they do that analysis, and then kind of where was your mind, and what were mistakes that you made at that point in time?
See, when I got out of Pepsi, I was also very nervous. And I felt that this whole deal of managing money, the idea of having a CA, filing returns, I mean, in the sense, the whole deal of being able to open your own company,
Hmm.
your, and managing the legal aspects of it, contracts, was the bit that I was really scared about. Because when you're in a company, I wouldn't even check salary. My mother used to ask salary aa gayi? And I used to say, "I gayi hogi." She said, "What do you mean, I gayi hogi?" I said, "I haven't checked because I'd be so focused on work." And for
Yeah.
for all of us in corporates, other than what the demands of work are, everything else is stuff that's not worth looking at because there's somebody else doing it. For the smallest little thing, yeah, this we'll talk to legal, we'll talk to packaging. This one is someone else's work, and this one is there are people and structures available for absolutely everything. Now, as an entrepreneur, there was this crushing realization: oh God, I'll have to do it all by myself, and oh God, I don't think I can do that, and I need help. So I partnered with a couple of folks I'd just gotten to know at that time. That didn't really go well. So extricating myself from that partnership took some uh, took some time, and it was mentally draining. But I want to tell everybody out there that you're a lot stronger and a lot more capable than you think you are. And then there are those who want to question and who feel, oh, can this not be done in another way? And is this meeting necessary? And is this process that we are following, isn't this taking up too much time? And who are the generally more intellectually restless lot.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds who I feel don't necessarily do well in that rat race. And many of them drop out, or many of them are just scared about what else. Like for me, for the longest time, even when I wasn't enjoying stints of my corporate journey, I'd feel, oh God, if not this, then what else? I'd never be able to do anything else. So I've just got to stick at this and do whatever best I can with this. But I got out, and I realized, much as it was difficult, I enjoyed it more than have to worry about the bits that I wasn't good at,
Hmm.
and eventually things work out. Yeah, one just has to stick around, and worst case, you may write a proposal that's not great. Worst case, you may say you may not back the client, or you may screw up at that assignment. But so what?
Yeah. Nobody's dying.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. It's not like a heart surgery. Like if I screw up, I'm going to kill someone. Uh,
या सो हाँ डीलर पैनल में एक चीज गलत होगी तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है बहुत फर्क पड़ता है सही बहुत फर्क पड़ता है लेट्स जस्ट गेट
oh man, Harinder, I have to tell you this. There
यार
was a full page ad that got printed. I won't take the name of the company. But
Hmm.
there was this full page ad that was printed with just one phone number to say customer service number, new service launch, blah, blah, blah. Here is the phone number. That phone number in the middle of the ad was wrong.
What are you saying?
I'm telling you.
I am what? And whose job? Like whose job was lost that day?
Can you imagine?
My God.
Full
You, ha-
page.
you you have to name the client. You have to name the brand now. You have to because I want to look this up. मेरे को करना है.
It has utter panic, utter panic. Thankfully, I was, I was neither agency nor client.
Right.
But I was like, oh shit, man! Thank God this has never happened with me, and may this never happen. But all kinds of things happen. Yeah. I mean, on the Dettol back of pack instead of soap, we had soup printed for the longest time.
Yeah. Which if you ingest it, nothing will happen. It's just like quick death, and that's about it. Yeah. And so I hope heads turned for that. Yeah, वो भी नहीं.
They go, luckily before anybody higher up had noticed, we were looking at the back of pack and said, oh, ye kya hua hai? Yeah. देखना है, am I also reading what you are, am I reading this correctly? देखना, check that. Is it indeed soup?
My God. Yeah. So tell me, bro. Like on this, like what were the worst parts of your CPG stints?
The worst parts of my CPG stints.
Absolutely, because you talked about the intellectual restlessness, right? And I
Yeah.
I get the
Yeah.
genesis of what you eventually did from there. But other than that, like what were the worst parts of kind of being in the places that you are? Because the 21-year-old who's kind of looking at your LinkedIn, right, is like, oh, she's worked on these stellar brands, and I wish I had a career like her. But I'm sure there's more to it, right? I'm sure there are parts which you didn't like as much. So tell that kid about that.
So, you see, everything is not perfectly laid out in the sense that, for example, my first marketing job at Henkel, there was virtually no money, but we were sponsoring Femina Miss India. Apart from that one event as such, I went to office and there was very little for me to do. There was, first of all, it was inherently a detergent selling company. Henkel and Henko were and Mr. White at that time, the big detergent brands, very, very big in the South. That's where bulk of their revenue came from. I was working on FA, this tuchu little brand in a corner. It looks good for the company and all of that. Tiny decimal percentage contribution to the revenue. Who has time to waste on FA? And the whole sales team has always been oriented. Their whole mindset is to sell in tons and bags. और यहाँ पे ये डीओ ये एक एक यूनिट प्लेस करना है एक एक वेरिएंट का लाइम भी होना चाहिए एक्वा भी होना चाहिए ब्ला भी होना चाहिए and all of that. So it was like really pushing water uphill, and then to top that, there's no money. So I'd come into office and I'd just play with data. It was like my first orientation at really learning Excel and playing with data to understand कहाँ से सेल आ रही है, कौन कर रहा है, इस महीने क्या हुआ, blah blah blah. And that's how I started this thing out of just having nothing else to do. I started this thing called the armpit war, which was all internal, and which was just helping the sales guys see तुमने पिछले महीने कितना किया और उसके पिछले महीने कितना किया. और
What is this name? Armpit war क्या होता है यार? Who named it? First of all. Let me hear about that. Like the moment you said armpit war, you don't want to know what I started imagining, but how did that go for you?
so it created a lot of buzz. Yeah, basically, I started copying the CEO. My then boss was very, very supportive, really nice guy.
Hmm.
And we had a lot of fun doing just this because suddenly it came into like people started looking at those numbers to say, oh, really, I had done so much of the lime variant, and really, is this what our share is against, Unilever and I don't even remember who were the other players at that time. Unilever was the one we used to sort of look towards, Axe, Rexona,
Hmm.
and because that was being copied to the CEO as well, the sales guys were now opening that email to see isme likha kya hai and where do I stand in the ranking and what are the different things that pieces of data she sent, and that in itself increased the sensitivity to how much they were placing. And I started taking names and saying, great job done this month, Harinder, this is what you've done, if you did this much more then you could get to this. And with just stuff like that and a little bit of press coverage that we got from Far Femina Miss India and the media rights, etc., that we got from Far Femina Miss India, we hit number one in DOs in parts of North, including Delhi, and the whole of Northeast against Rexona, which their media spends were about 25x ours. So it was a very, very big deal for us internally that we beat Rexona, you know, and uh, and we are more visible on shelf than Unilever is. So that was my high. Basically, that's all I did. A lot of times it's just the initiative you take. Uh, you're on brands that, for example, Sting in the early days at Pepsi, when Sting just started, one would think वो Sting का brand manager क्या करेगा? For me on Quaker, for example, Quaker was a decimal contribution on Pepsi when I came. Then I was working on Aliva crackers. You know, uh, it was a profit drainer. We weren't making money on it. We would only present these fancy charts on the glide path to increased profitability, which was a whole lot of bullshit. Because the glide path is basically postponing the problem to say, right now I'm screwed, but someday in the future I will make money. Please believe that I will make money someday in the future.
Yeah, so the CPG version of like VC dreams, right?
VC dreams, exactly. And the CFO would say this is all rubbish. I would say, no, you see, the cogs would come down when we scale production. When you would scale production, how would you scale production when people start buying more? When will people start buying more? When we invest in it more? And where will the money come to invest in it more? That we don't know. Could you please give us some more money?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Did you
So
get more
I've
money?
said that, a lot of actually marketing is one of those functions where it is also a lot is dependent on just the personality of the people
Hmm.
behind it.
Yeah.
A lot is dependent on your own conviction, and because fundamentally, what is it? It's consumer psychology, and every product is a product till you create. What is a brand? A brand differentiates one product from another product, even if the two products have identical features. Every shoe might be relatively the same. The shoe that is being manufactured for Adidas out of a factory in Ludhiana, if the guy, instead of Adidas, were to put his own logo on it, you don't want to buy it. But as Adidas, you're willing to pay 30,000, 40,000 for it. So, what is it that Adidas has done? What is it that we do as marketers? We convert products to brands and we build conviction for that internally equally. And for that, you've just fundamentally got to have a strong personality, you've got to have strong conviction and a lot of resilience because there is enough shit that comes through you, and you just have to fight through all of that. Plenty of times when there is no money and you've got to figure now what do I do?
Hmm. But do you think things like moving slightly slower or being a little bureaucratic is especially kind of systemic in legacy CPG firms?
They're just safer and that's why they're slower. Like, Dove Hair, for example, went through four different bases 2 tests. Which startup would ever do that? Doritos before coming into India. 3 ब्रांड मैनेजर्स माइट हैव चेंज्ड वो हर ब्रांड मैनेजर वो रिसर्च करके चला जा रहा था बेसिस 2 करके चला जा रहा था वो कंपेयर करके बेसिस 1 वर्सेस बेसिस 2 दिस ईयर वर्सेस लास्ट ईयर वो सारा कंपेयर करके और खत्म हो गया उसका ब्रांड मैनेजर का स्टिंट ही खत्म हो गया अभी ब्रांड कब लॉन्च होगा वो नहीं पता so so a lot of it's just about you see with it depends on the extent of investment planned the extent of capex planned on that. If there is a lot of capex planned on that new launch, then of course one has to be extra safe, and companies in particular are extra safe. A lot of times the reputation is at risk, the whole brand's reputation might be at risk. For example, in the case of Dove hair, you don't mess with a brand like Dove, so you've got to be sure. But the advantage of startups is it's a new brand, it's a new product. You test on the go, you put it out, and stuff doesn't work. You pull it back or you change. You can even change the product offer. The point being that a lot of startups have the luxury of being able to pivot, make quick decisions, and FMCGs, large FMCGs, are now realizing the value of that, and they've opened separate wings, and a separate budget has been ring fenced for just these kind of initiatives. Throw stuff at the wall and then see what sticks. But that kind of agility requires a different mindset.
Can't agree more. So, do you think that kind of flexibility and like speed was refreshing for you? Was it different? Was it not different?
I loved it. I just totally loved it. And I felt that that is the reason why I was feeling sort of suffocated in the large corporates. You
Yeah.
see, because a lot of stuff that we do in large corporates is is just stuff to be overly safe. And and that's also the reason why things move at this excruciatingly slow pace. And you're also tied with people, even in terms of contracts. There are global contracts with agencies, irrespective of capabilities. You're stuck, x number of people you have to work with. These are the ways we will do things. um, Pepsi was a lot more entrepreneurial, but Pepsi was also, it had its own problems being unstructured. HUL versus Levers in Bangkok, where I was working, were very, very different entities. And again, hair versus, or HPC,
Mm.
home and personal care, versus tea, where I was working at in the last 6 months with the HUL, was also very different. Tea was an entirely different culture. Now, on tea, we didn't make, our margins were in the 30s, versus HPC, where the margins are 75% plus. So, how you look at the business, things you do, even the kind of outbounds that you go to, everything is different. No?
चाय वालों से रेट नहीं है ज्यादा.
चाय चाय वालों के पास पैसे नहीं थे. So I was lucky, but it was strange. When I was on hair, the
Hmm.
complaint on the floor was, Abhi, to we just went to Malaysia and we just went to Paris. Do we really have to go for this trip yet again? Why would you just let me sit and do my work? No, we're now going for this outbound to discuss. Every 2.5, 3 months, we're going to an exotic location. And the complaint was, why can't we just sit and work? Do we really have to go?
The entitlement on this is like too. It's not even funny. Yeah, but tell me, like we spoke about like brand managers changing and like brand being what it is. Do you think CMOs bring their own personal fingerprint on brands, and is that a good or a bad thing?
100%, 100%, entirely. It's definitely a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. It's bad if the vision of the CEO or the CMO or the personality of the CMO is not in sync with the personality of the brand. I've always said this, that in some ways there has to be some semblance. You have to be able to relate with the brand that you're selling. If
Hmm.
your world is entirely different, then either you've got to work really hard to understand the consumer's point of view, to understand the ecosystem within which that brand operates, like who is buying it. You've got to understand the world of the consumer. And if you don't understand it, then you're not the right person to be working on that brand. For example, agar, uh, somebody who's, for example, never used a wheel detergent powder and doesn't understand what is the fundamental psyche of that consumer, how that consumer is interacting with that brand, you've got to make the effort to do that. And one of the things that I used to love at Levers, the rigor that they used to insist on, it was this 100 hours of consumer work before you're able to even allowed to even contribute in a meeting. You don't open your mouth unless and until you've completed 100 hours of consumer work. We don't want to hear your opinion until then. That kind of rigor, how many companies have today?
Don't most don't.
Exactly. A lot of senior management also talk about this. This is what happens in my house. This is what my wife does, or what my child does,
Hmm.
and that's considered to be, that's the way it is for the entire world. It's not,
Yeah, I do
So
believe.
for sure, a CMO's personality, his or her own conviction, and where they want to take the brand is a very, very large part of how brands turn out.
Like I agree because I was thinking about this yesterday evening, right? So I happen to know so in the EV two wheeler war, right? There's Ola and there's Ather Energy, and both of them are doing brilliant, right? I think they're great Indian brand stories. One can have an opinion on how good or bad the product is or whatever, right? So I know both Anshul who leads the Ola Electric marketing and Pranesh who leads the Ather marketing. So I feel and both of them are very different, like the chalk and cheese, right? And I see their personalities in how the brand also speaks, right? For good and bad. So I was debating if that's actually a good thing. So Pranesh is like super straight jacketed, super structured, like one of those uh, amazing marketers who will like have a lot of left brain, right, in kind of what he does, and structural. So he's an ex Air Force person. So I saw something which Ether put out, which it was like a small video from Khali. It was one of those meme things, right, which kind of Khali produced. I sent him that, and I was like, is it on brand? Like I understand it, but is it on brand? He's like, I was not fully convinced, right? So I can see that, right? That the room says that okay, let's do something meme, right? I think we are getting too serious as a brand, which I think Aether is. Right? Aether's positioning is super intelligent and minimalist. So I look at it as the Audi equivalent in the EV space, and Ola is much more with it, vibrant, and like that's the brand signature. So I do feel hiring a CMO with the brand's personality, or probably the brand's personality becomes the CMO's personality over a long period of time. Yeah, it's a confusing one, right?
Totally. It's very, and this again comes from not enough appreciation and respect for the consumer's world, not enough understanding of what the DNA of this brand is, or of any intentional will to build a brand in a consistent fashion over a period of time in a certain way. Why do we, when we learned the rigor of creating brand books, how many brands today do that? New age brands. Every ad looks different. Every post is looking different. बस खाली logo चिपका दिया. अरे भाई, just getting a celebrity copywriter to do a wacko story, and you stick your logo at the end. That's not called branding, for God's sake. There is a reason why the likes of an Ariel and a Whisper sanitary napkins and a Harpic and a Vicks and a Dove shampoo and whatever else may be doing fairly boring advertising, but they have set templates. They have very set, codified, um, you know uh, principles that they follow in their advertising, and that sells. Yeah, that sells. I mean, why does Tide do the swoosh again and again and again and again? Because it just sticks in your mind, and when you go to the market and you're thinking detergent, you're thinking, there's a Tide and there's a Surf and there's an Ariel and I don't know what I'm saying. That brand, there is a difference between just being creative and being cool and being, using memes and making that the center of marketing, versus really understanding what does it take to build long term success, long term runway for growth on a brand. How does one do that consistently without letting one's own ego get in the way, and thinking about how am I crafting this brand, and do I really understand if this is a brand that consumers will find easy to relate with and will respect over all other brand. Fundamentally, every product is pretty much the same. And more now, product differentiation is becoming very, very difficult. Can another brand not wake up in the morning and do memes? किसी और कंटेंट क्रिएटर को ले आओ, वो भी कुछ फनी कर देंगे, और मेरे पास ज्यादा पैसे हैं तो मैं तन्मय भट्ट से और कोई कैट आदमी ले आऊंगा, वो भी कोई फिल्म लिख दे, पीयूष पांडे को ले आते हैं, हम भी फिल्म कर लेते हैं. तो उससे नहीं ब्रांड बन जाती है. एक पीयूष पांडे और एक तन्मय भट्ट से नहीं ब्रांड बन जाती है. आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ a lot of the new age companies really get this.
But like I was hearing, I read somewhere that Tanmay Bhatt is the new Piyush Pandey, and like that made something in my stomach churn, but it also made me think, right? Like, is it right? Let me just put my bias aside. Where are you on this?
I think it's totally unfair to compare any two individuals, but the problem is not per se with Tanmay Bhatt. I mean, if I were a Tanmay Bhatt and if people were willing to pay me pots of money for some script that I could write, I would also do that. I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to take the money. Maybe it's a creative project for him. Why blame the man?
Mhm.
He's having fun and he's getting paid for it, and somebody is willing to buy that. So, so it's all right. I mean, from his standpoint, but the responsibility is that of the brands, of the team behind it. Like, do you sufficiently understand what you are doing? What is the brief you've given? How do you plan to build this brand? Is that one ad going to change your fortunes forever? And is this even sitting on your P&L? It's the same with signing up celebrities. Do I really know how am I using this celebrity? Do I need this celebrity? How many strong iconic brands, even from the worlds of PNG and Unilever, really have celebrities? A lot of them don't have celebrities, but they are sitting in the number one, number two, number three position on market share. you know Look at the Mondelez brands. How many of them have celebrities? So it's not, people think that I can use this one name, or I can use this celebrity as a tool. And that's what brand building is about. It's not. A lot of people confuse views on LinkedIn or Instagram or the kind of comments that they get on LinkedIn as a surrogate for success. None of those people who are saying, oh, great job done, man, what a cool film, none of those guys are going to go out and buy your product.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm like Vani, I'm just getting like too much out of this conversation, and I'm thinking I can like take another hour, and but I know you have brands to help, and I have like biryani to finish, and so there's all of that. But I won't let you go before asking you like this one question which I wanted. So from your vantage point, right? What's the anatomy of a great young marketing hire?
Somebody who has a really seeking mindset, who wants to learn and will not allow any kind of grunt work to get in the way of that, and will in fact welcome the grunt work as real foundational learning. Like I don't marketing is something, if you genuinely have interest in the subject, you don't need to be an MBA, you don't need to have done BCom honors, you can be from English literature, from psychology, whatever, it can be anything at all.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in the world of brands, and marketing and consumer psychology, that excites you, and you have the right attitude, then anybody can be a great marketer. I mean, if a child were to tell me that doing a transcript is boring, or I don't wish to do it, or I'm going to be doing a shoddy job at it, then I don't want to be hiring that person. You have to be willing to do that. You have to be able to understand that in doing a transcript, for example, between a client and an agency, or where the client is giving you a brief, it's tremendous opportunity to learn. You're understanding how the other person is thinking, and there is no better learning than to be able to write and learn. If you're not willing to do the grunt work, if you're not willing to make, for example, minutes of the meeting is a core competency required for you to become a CEO, I would argue. Because what does that tell me? It tells me that here is a person who's able to put structure to a lot of unstructured conversation and distill the most important aspects and be able to provide direction for the future. If somebody is able to do great minutes of the meeting, I'd very happily hire this person and be happy to pay them a lot of money. I'm saying simple stuff like that is what would make a good hire, in my view.
But other than grunt work, what else? What are like signals?
Questions they're asking,
Hmm.
the kind of stuff that they're reading up on their own, the kind of case studies they're doing, the kind of work that they're willing to work with you on. I've seen kids who'd say, "Can I work with you on this brand and on this brand and on this?" I said, "But haven't you got?" No, professor, I can do this also, and I can. I said, "Like, that's great, man. I love that attitude."
Hmm.
You want to see initiative, you want to see enterprise, you want to see genuine curiosity and interest, and the gratitude for being able to do a plethora of work, rather than seeing it as, oh, is this too much? That tells you a lot about whether this person in the long run will last, and how well will this person do. So those are the simple things I look for.
Mani, I absolutely love this conversation, and like I want to go on, but yeah, thank you. I'm so very cognizant of your time. So folks, I'm going to leave this and the link to Cherry Peach Plum, so that in case you know somebody who's benefit from those services, please reach out. Please use the coupon code Harinder50 to get 50% off on your consultation services. So that okay, yeah, that there is no Harinder50 yet, or is there? Right? Okay, so folks, do get in touch. I'm sure you'll be in like super safe hands, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun while you do that. So thank you again, Vani, and thank you for giving your Saturday morning to me. And have a great day. And we'll keep watching what you do on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Harinder. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Really thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much.